sleep on me, better do something with your eyelids. I hear a lot of whining, but I don't hear a lot of rhyming. Whoa. Everybody got opinions, let it go into my ear, then I block that. Put me on stage, I'ma rock that, saying you the best. Stop that, phony, I am not that. Yeah. What are y'all doing out here? What are y'all doing out here? Maybe you should spend a little less time with the women on your arms and a little bit.
Welcome on in, afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Tuesday, May the 4th, be with you. May the 4th, Star Wars Day. Zach, do you celebrate? Do you celebrate? Take any part into May the 4th? Is that a thing for you?
I do now.
What does that entail? Your celebration?
No real celebration.
Okay.
More for me, it's more of just an appreciation. Like we're gonna watch the season premiere of The Bad Batch tonight. I cannot wait. The Bad Batch was a bad batch of clones from the Clone Wars, but they're so good. It's such a but that's really all it's going to entail is watching a good piece of Star Wars film.
Well,
So
that's fine. That's fine. You're not one of those Star Wars.
I'm not going to dress
nerds
up.
That's like doing the cosplay,
No.
but also got the like the Yoda shaped fruits or whatever all those foods and stuff.
Don't have any costumes.
No themes.
Now I've got like some memorabilia, like I've got some Grogu memorabilia and stuff, and like I wouldn't mind like a stormtrooper helmet, just like cool stuff, but I'm not gonna wear it, like it'd be on like display in my office.
Oh,
I'm not gonna like wear it.
Thank goodness.
And I'm not gonna. I will say this: I'm not gonna be one of the people, and I'm not knocking the people that do it because I've spent a lot of money on some stuff that people would be like, "Why are you spending your money on that?" But I'm not gonna be one of the people that go out and spend like $600 on a custom lightsaber from Disney.
Nah, I won't. I won't knock. I won't knock those people because I love Star Wars as much as the next guy, especially the old stuff. But you're a giant nerd if you do that. Sorry, you are. But I do want to the whole Star Wars like.
I will say I love the argument. It's like,
yeah,
you're such a nerd if you do that, and then they come back at you and they're like, says the guy who spends $200 on a football jersey with another man's name on the back. Like that's just a fun.
But I'm like, hey, nerd, that at least I involve sports in it. Like that's sports.
Hey,
it's
they
not
got
nerdy.
pod racing. They race animals.
They shoot the wombats and stuff. Yeah, I know what wombat is.
They're sport.
Nerd. Nerd over here.
W for Wombo.
There's a dub right there for all the Star Wars guys out there and gals. Cool. May the 4th, and then you get Cinco de Mayo following. It's just a crazy couple of days.
Could you imagine, like, you have this massive celebration, like you're binging the Star Wars and you're getting lit, and then you wake up the next day and you're feeling terrible, so you pound some tequila and then you just eat tacos all day while continuing to watch Star Wars. Like, what a time to be alive.
Regroup, time to rally because it's May the 5th. Let's go. Let's do
it.
I'm a fan, man. I like it. We have a big show coming up today here on May the 4th. We're going to dive into some Oklahoma State draft prospects that just got selected in the NFL draft and where they landed. We'll find out and discuss and decide who's going to have the most productive career. I think that's the best way to take this, is to look at all these different teams where these guys landed and think, all right, but which team has set this player up for success? And that's a question we're going to ask Frank Bonner coming up at 3:25, about 15 minutes. So we'll talk to him, too. We'll keep up with the Aaron Rodgers drama and take a look at some of the other teams, see how they did in the draft since we are officially over. I saw one of the most depressing memes of my life.
Oh, I like
a couple days ago. Yeah, it was sad.
Sign me up.
It was the Spider-Man one, the old Spider-Man one, where he says, "You're not going to like this news," and he's like, "Go ahead and tell
Mary
me."
Jane in the cemetery.
Yeah. He's like, "Tell me," and she goes, "We have 4 more months till the NFL season starts because you had the draft and it was all exciting and everybody got pumped up." And he's like, "You gotta wait 4 more months."
I think the Canadian Football League is starting up here pretty soon.
It doesn't. Yeah, I don't care.
It's football.
Nah, barely. Yeah, the CFL is. It's where NFL careers go to die. If you want to try to extend it. Sorry, but that's what it is. So
when you find it any worse than people that watch Maction on Thursdays.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of with you.
Action's pretty terrible.
It's pretty terrible. I completely agree. It is pretty terrible.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Yikes, Big Ben.
It's not like we play a MAC team.
No, not at all. So let's play some fortune teller here. and let's take a look at who we think might end up with the longest, most productive career at the next level for Oklahoma State with their teams. Run them down again. Tevin Jenkins with the Chicago Bears, Chuba with the Carolina Panthers, Tylen with the Baltimore Ravens, Rodgers with the New York Giants.
Oh, so we're going just with the team that's selecting them right now,
Yeah.
not long-term career.
No,
Okay.
I mean, we can, but we'll focus on the
fruitful-
team that has them
Okay,
right now.
okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So Rodgers, New York Giants, Dylan with the Raiders, Cam Murray went to Arizona with the Cardinals, Amon went to the Los Angeles Chargers, and Calvin Bundage went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I focus on those 4 guys that were actually drafted. And while I think I would have latched on to the idea before I found out what team he landed on, that Tylen, as I said, would be the guy that would probably have the chance at the longest and most productive career. And people, when they hear, if they don't know a lot about the Baltimore Ravens, right, then they're probably like, nice, good for Tylen. And it is good for Tylen. That's great. I think it's a great opportunity. And I guess I would say this too, Zach, a little bit. It's kind of a two-way street. Because part of me is like, I'm glad that when he starts his career, that's where he's going to land. Because maybe if things don't go great and Baltimore sticks with the run-heavy offense and he's not involved a ton, then maybe that happens early in his career before he gets a chance to get really into his prime. And maybe he lands somewhere else. But I want to buy in, and I'm very hopeful for a full rebirth of the Baltimore Ravens offense. When they get guys like Rashad Bateman and Tylan Wallace in the same draft, you would have to be nuts to not be out there ready to use those guys with the weapons you already have. Mark Andrews, who's usually a top 5, definitely top 10 tight end in the league right now. He's a great pass catcher. You mix him in, you mix Sammy Watkins in when he's healthy. I'm still not sure quite what his role is going to be, but hopefully he stays healthy for them. And then, of course, you have Marquise Brown that you throw in there too. So there are weapons on this squad. It's just a team that doesn't really throw the ball that much, but they have to reverse that. Lamar Jackson is a guy who's won over 80% of the games he's played in. He's a big part of what they do, but I would have to think even for him, while he's comfortable running the football, he's probably got to be with Greg Roman and John Harbaugh and like, guys, look, like we got the weapons. He's probably been saying for these last couple of years, look, I need somebody else, man. Like Marquise Goodwin is not the guy, right? I mean, he's a Goodwin, not Marquise Goodwin. I'm thinking of the San Francisco guy. Hollywood over here is not the guy.
Brown.
Yeah, Marquise Brown.
Close.
I was close.
Yeah.
I don't know why I had Goodwin on the mind. Oh, I think because Patrick Mahomes tweeted something yesterday and he quoted him, was like, yes sir, or something like that. But Hollywood Brown over there in Baltimore, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? He's coming up and he's like, guys, I need somebody else. And they said, okay, how about this? Rashad Bateman. And he goes, nice. And they go, oh, wait.
By the way.
We're not done.
By the way.
We are going to grab Tylan Wallace in the 4th round, and he's still not off the board. And Lamar Jackson said, yes, sir, thank you. We're going to get this opportunity to spread this ball around. But as you know, I'm still leery on the idea that he is going to end up with the most productive career based off where he is starting here, because there is some negative to it. I really believe in what Tevin Jenkins is going to do at the next level. If I had to buy a guy out of those 4, I would probably right now latch on to Tevin Jenkins. That is for sure when he does mold himself more into an NFL caliber guy, which he's there, but there's still some things he needs to improve on. Once he gets out there on the field and is facing next level guys on the defensive side, then we're going to see, can he handle it? And I think he will be able to do that. I think he's in a great spot with what Chicago's doing. So he's the guy I'm going to buy into right now. It's tough to latch onto a running back in this type of scenario, and because you never know with
Especially
running backs.
with CMC there.
Yeah, you never know with running backs, especially with a guy like CMC in his way. Chuba's in a good spot. So right now, though, I'm gonna say Tevin, for me, probably has the mixture of the longest and most productive career in the NFL. Of course, all this provided these guys stay healthy. And then Tylan probably right behind him, but that's only if Baltimore actually does flip the switch, which I'm, again, hopeful that happens this year, because you're going to end up re-signing Lamar Jackson soon too. But when you do that, does that mean as the Baltimore Ravens, all right, that means we're going to, when we re-sign him, our future is based off what he likes to do on the ground in our run game?
Well, I think when you look fully at the draft class that Baltimore brought in, I think it's pretty evident that they want to start leaning more on the pass game. Because if that weren't the case, they'd go out and get, an offensive lineman in the first round or, a linebacker. They wouldn't go out and get Rashad Bateman in the first round and then in the fourth round get easily a top 10 receiver in Tylan Wallace, who slipped to the middle of the fourth round.
Well, and isn't it too fair to say, Zach, that at that spot in the fourth round, you had Baltimore where they were actually in a best available situation, but also it was kind of a two-parter because they could add another wide receiver to that depth chart?
Yeah, because you not only get one of the best players available at that spot, you go out and you get I'm trying to put my bias aside, but I think Tylan Wallace is a top 5 receiver in this draft. I've seen what he can do for the last 3 years. He comes off should have been a Bolitnikoff season in 2018, tears his ACL midway through the 2019 season, which when he tore it I think he had 902 yards or something. So he was on pace to have another Bolitnikoff finalist season. Tears his ACL, rehabs the offseason, and comes back. Doesn't miss a beat. Now, you don't have a quarterback that's going to throw for, it's going to throw his way for 14, 15, 1,600 yards. But you could tell that he was still just as explosive. He still had that leaping ability. He could still come down with any ball you threw within a 10-foot radius of his body. So I think Tylan's a top 5 receiver, and you're able to get him in the fourth round. So I think not only did you get the best player available, but you got one of the best receivers overall in the draft. You go out and you get the two of the top receivers in the draft class, and then you just don't use them. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think Tylan is in for a pretty decent career if they do indeed move that direction.
Well, the Ravens know. I mean, they're not dumb. They know that we got to go in. We got to enhance the passing game.
Now, is it going to be Lamar Jackson throwing for 5,000 yards? Probably not.
No.
But I could see him throwing for 3,000 plus, and that's 3,000 plus, and then you tack on, safe to say, 1,500 rushing yards. That's a pretty solid season. I would want that from my quarterback.
Well, that's what they want to develop consistently, and I part of it to me is still I'm pretty bullish on his deep ball ability.
Sure.
But again, there hasn't been a ton of chances that have been allowed for this team. But I think they're bought in with the receivers and giving him a shot. Because as a Ravens fan base, I would have to believe they're giving this as like a do or die situation. It's like, look, we got our guys. We didn't make any real headlines in free agency to bring over any giant names as receivers. But instead, we went into the draft and got two really solid players that are probably ready for the next level, which is also part of what I want to question with Tylan, because he was top 15 receivers available in this draft class. It was really deep. It was really, really deep. But you look at what he did at the college level. Sorry, but most of the time he was out there clowning guys. Like, there wasn't a ton of competition. Like, Tylan Wallace, if you asked him, he would come back and be like, oh, man, I got to tip my hat to some of these guys. They covered me. No, they didn't. They didn't cover you well at all, dude. Like, I know, like, you can go out there and be humble, but I'm telling you
There's
now.
Few, like Texas,
occasionally you'd run into them.
Texas had a few. You'd see him in the bowl game. OU had a few decent throughout the year.
Yeah, well, Oklahoma was, but they're the best team in the Big 12.
That's what I'm saying.
They're going to come in and get it done.
You only had a few games a year.
Yeah, very, very rarely was he remotely challenged throughout the entire game, like at the college level.
Right.
So how does he translate that to the next level where, first of all, you're not going to be a starter most likely to get out there and start the season. It's going to take a while for you to probably crack that. And then when you do, through a progression, through a read with Lamar Jackson, who is a guy that really likes to run, and that's what the game plan is, you may be the third or fourth option. So it's going to be strange, man. It's going to be a different territory for somebody like Tylan. That's why you're asking him to adjust to quite a bit. I think he's capable of it, but you're asking him to do a lot in his rookie year.
I think it'll take a while for Tylan. I think, and while is kind of a relative term. I think it'll probably take a few seasons to really get going for Tylan. Now, I think he's going to have his moments his rookie year. He's going to go out there and he'll make some plays that people will be like, wow, that's a hell of a play. He's not going to put up, I would like for it to, knock on wood, but I can't see him going out and putting up 6, 7, 800 yards in his rookie season.
No, I don't think he's going to have that opportunity.
I see him going out. I could see him putting up a few hundred. I think he's going to get his chances. I think he can prove himself. But I think it'll take a few years for him to really get his feet under him and really get through that depth chart. If we look at the rest of them, I think Rodgers probably takes 2 or 3 years. If Chuba went somewhere where they had just above average running back, then I think he'd have a chance to kind of break that a little bit. But when you're all of a sudden behind one of the top 5 backs in the NFL, I don't know how fruitful you can be. Now, he can be successful, but I don't know how successful. But I'm with you. If I'm looking at the 4 draftees, I'm looking at Tevin. I think Tevin, he's one of the best run blockers. And I know people give him a knock for his pass blocking, but never gave up a sack. And like the last sack he gave up, they said, was like in 2018 or something. Yeah. It's like 600 some odd plays or something like that. Now he'll obviously have to adjust to the NFL level because you are going up against NFL defensive linemen every single game. But I think if we're talking about longevity with the same club, I think with what the Bears have invested into Tevin Jenkins and his skill set, I think he could have the most success. And if we're going to take a look at the 4 guys that went undrafted, I think you're looking at Cam Murray. I think you look at what he can do there in the middle. You've got 2 fantastic defensive ends. How much more does J.J. Watt have? I don't know. But when you've got J.J. Watt on one side, and who was the other guy?
You bring in Chandler Jones.
Yeah, Chandler Jones. And he's pretty good. And you put Cam Murray in the middle. I think it'll take Cam a little bit. Now he'll have to earn his way on. But I think he's a guy that makes a practice squad and sticks with Arizona for a while and eventually works his way into that 53-man roster and can make some noise. So if we're talking about draftees, it's Tevin Jenkins. If we're talking about undrafted, I think it's probably going to be Cam with Dylan like a 1C.
Yeah, pretty much right there with you, too. I mean, people, they look at it and say, well, okay, but is for the Tylen thing, is being on the Ravens, is that such a big deal? Look back at last year with the evidence here. You had Henry Ruggs, and you had Jerry Jeudy. Okay, 2 studs. They're really good in college, obviously. Not now. Tylen's not as good as they were in college by any means, but they landed on teams in the NFL that did not adhere to their style of play. Henry Ruggs was pretty much too fast half the time to belong in a Raiders offense that didn't go deep all the time. Why? Because it's not necessarily Derek Carr's strength. Okay, he's not able to get it down there to a speedster like Henry Ruggs. Therefore, he had a down season for the most part in his rookie year. Jerry Jeudy the same way. Now, part of that as well was Broncos quarterbacks suck, right? Like Drew Lock is a disaster, so it was tough to get him the ball, but he wasn't necessarily great on his route running and getting a lot of ability, having a lot of ability to get open in that offense too, which I think was not tailored to his style of play. So yeah, there's that. That's why there's worry for me for Tylen, because I want a guy to start off, and when they get the opportunity to make the most out of him, I just don't know how many he's actually going to get early in this offense.
Well, the good thing is, I think he's obviously being projected as an inside slot receiver, so there's not going to be too many deep ball opportunities there anyway. So I think you could see a lot of dink and dunks.
Yeah, no, and I'm not expecting him to be the guy that's going to run deep and make big plays.
But the good thing is he has that experience. He can go. Now, I'm excited to and really interested to see how that physicality and how that body control and I'm excited to see how that translates to the NFL level. Can you continue with your explosiveness? Can you go up against NFL defenders, rise up and come down with the ball, contort your body in the air? Can you go up over defenders and come down with that pass?
Yeah.
That's what I'm really excited to see. I'm interested to see if it translates. The good thing is if there is a deep ball opportunity, you got a guy who, well, I would have to say more than 70% of his catches were deep balls.
You can get him on Twitter at ZLancaster91. I'm at the Patty Wheels. When we come back, Frank Bonner will join us. We'll pick his brain about the where these Oklahoma State players landed at the NFL level. Talk about that next. Coming up, Triple Play Sports Radio.
Oh, screaming out at the top of my lungs, tell the world that I found the one. Oh, my baby's hotter than the golden sun. You make my heart beat like a bass drum.
Welcome back in. Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network, Tuesday edition. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster, and joining us now from the Tulsa world is Frank Bonner. Frank, on this May the 4th, are you a big Star Wars guy? Are you all out there celebrating today?
No, I'm actually not a big Star Wars guy, and I've only watched the third one from start to finish. So I'm don't crucify me for not seeing all the Star Wars saga.
The third one, like the original third one, or like number 3 in all of them?
Number 3 in the sequence.
Okay. I'm
so
not mad at that because not gonna lie.
You were the chosen one.
I'm not gonna lie. It's my favorite one. So,
it's good.
Yeah,
man. That's a good.
There's
one.
people that are controversial about
I
that.
hate you.
I actually brought that up
good.
one time and said number 3 was my favorite one, and it almost caused an all-out brawl.
I like the original. I like the new trilogy. I mean, it's poorly put together, but I like Jar Jar Binks is my guy.
Yeah, it's lazy to me.
Misa
I'm gonna be
likes
honest.
Jar Jar.
It's lazy. Frank's not a big Star Wars guy. That's fine. I basically explained the same thing back at the beginning of the show, that I'm in the same boat with you too, Frank. But it is, May the 4th, Cinco de Mayo, a lot of celebrating going on for some people these next couple of days. Frank, first, I got to say.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Frank, they got Bigfoot up in Indiana?
Bigfoot.
Yeah, Bigfoot, like Sasquatch.
You got Bigfoot up in Indiana, Sasquatch? I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
That was also, sorry, that's random. That was a hot topic we were debating before the show, too.
I had to confirm with my girlfriend, and she didn't know.
Frank, you just never know, man. You just never know what you're going to get. I got to say, spot on, nice pick with Trey Lance going to the 49ers.
That's good,
I didn't forget. I remember you saying that was who you had, and we needed you to explain your reasoning. And you were
nailed it.
You were spot on, man. I'm telling you, I really thought we were in for a huge, we got you all moment from the 49ers taking Justin Fields, but they stuck with your guy.
Yeah, like I said, I thought that was the pick they should have took, but I didn't know if they would actually do it, just because, like I said, Mac Jones was a safe pick. But if you look at guys who have the highest ceiling, I think it's Trey Lance, and I think the 49ers see that too, so we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, man, it's going to be really interesting to see when he gets in there, runs the plays, and how that does work out with that offense for sure. What do you think overall of the NFL draft kind of being back in somewhat of a normal setting? You had a pretty large-sized crowd. You had Roger Goodell walking out, getting booed, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a sign that the sports world is as close as it's ever been in a long time of being back to normal. So it was good to see that the draft is back to a live event, and especially for the players being drafted. I mean, the ones that were there being able to have that moment. I mean, I know the guys drafted last year were able to have a similar moment, but I'm sure there's nothing like being able to walk across that stage and hear your name called and all that. So you got to love it for the guys getting their name called.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like last year was, I thought they put it on well given the circumstances, but I'm good with that being a one-time thing. We're talking to Frank Bonner here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. All right, so how surprised were you to see Tevin Jenkins drop out of that first round?
I was surprised, and I was real surprised to see the Raiders take an offensive lineman that wasn't Tevin Jenkins.
Right.
I mean, if the Raiders weren't going to draft Jenkins, I thought it would be because they went another position. But if you were going to go offensive line, I thought you were going to go Tevin Jenkins. And so that was the most surprising moment to see that happen. And, at the end of the day, you go second round, still a solid position. But I was definitely surprised to see that he didn't go first round.
Yeah, I was too. When they took Leatherwood at 17, I wasn't feeling too confident for him, but I was also thinking, all right, that means that maybe there's a team like the Steelers or somebody here that's like, hey, he did fall to us. We're going to take him. Or he'll go into that second round, but he still went a lot farther than I expected too. I was right on the team he went to with the Bears, but wrong round. So do you like the fit with Chicago? And I would have to think that, blocking for Justin Fields potentially in your rookie year might not be too bad of a gig, probably better than Andy Dalton.
Yeah, right. And to kind of go towards your point, I thought the Colts might have drafted him because the Colts needed a tackle that they didn't even address in the draft at all. And so I thought, he may go to the Colts, but ending up with the Bears, I'm not trying to say Spencer Sanders is Justin Fields at all, but he's used to blocking for a mobile quarterback, and so having a mobile quarterback, in Chicago with Justin Fields, I think will have some type of comfort level for him. And so I think that could be a pretty good marriage for Fields and Tevin Jenkins in that situation.
Yeah, it's a good point. He's seen some of that mobility before, and it's going to be taken to another level with Justin Fields. So if I had told you before the draft that Chuba Hubbard would be taken before Tylan Wallace, how would you have responded to that one?
After 2019, I would have agreed, but this year, no, I would have said Tylan Wallace is. My money is that Tylan Wallace is going ahead of Chuba. But I would like to say that I am glad that he didn't take a major hit in his draft stock after the year he had with the injuries and everything. And so I was happy to see him go in the fourth round, because he could have fell, to maybe, fifth, sixth round or whatever. So I was happy to see that his draft stock didn't get affected too much by the year that he had.
Yeah, I think I was absolutely with you in terms of at least expecting at one point him probably to be a fifth or sixth round, and a lot of it having to do with what he did this past season in terms of output, lack of, and that type of thing. But he still gets grabbed in the fourth by a guy who coached against him at the college level in Matt Rule in Carolina. Do you like where he lands there? I mean, he gets to sit and really progress behind one of the best backs in the league right now, and then, of course, Matt Rule, who seems like a great coach to play for.
Yeah, I like where he lands because, for one, at Oklahoma State, he didn't get a chance to really dive into being a pass-catching back, and Carolina doesn't necessarily need him to be that right away because they've got one of the best pass-catching backs in the league in Christian McCaffrey. And another reason why I like it is because Matt Rule knows what he does well because he coached against it. And so now that he's on his coaching staff, I think he knows better than any other coach, in the league, specifically to Chuba Hubbard, on how to get the best out of him because he's seen it before. He's seen it for, those couple of years that he was in Baylor. So I think that's a good fit for him because, he's game planned against them, so you know how to use him.
Yeah, and you mentioned the pass catching is something I talked about immediately too, because you do want to see probably more of that eventually out of Chuba at the next level, and if that's the case, I mean, he's, like I said, getting to learn from one of the best, if not the best in the game right now that does that out of the backfield. But, what do you think, or what do you expect his role to ultimately be maybe this upcoming year? Because we talked about Mike Davis already being gone. He's out of there, and he was the backup last year for Christian McCaffrey when he got hurt, and you would have to probably think now Chuba slides in as that number two guy, could quite literally be your change of pace guy this year. And if Christian McCaffrey were to get injured, I mean, who knows?
Yeah, and I think for one that having him there, you assume keeps Christian McCaffrey from getting injured, and then two, if you use him as that change of pace guy, I think it helps the offense because putting him in there if he gets enough carries, he can kind of act as a decoy. Well, if you got Chuba in there, you expect that they're going to run, and then you can still use Christian McCaffrey, in the passing game on that play. And so I think they can do a lot of things with Hubbard and McCaffrey together, which should give Hubbard a nice amount of experience in his rookie year to get on the field, I think.
We're talking to Frank Bonner here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what he does with that team. So Tylan goes to Baltimore 5 picks later there. And I don't know about you, Frank, but I'm a little iffy on this because of the offense that is ran there in Baltimore. However, it does seem like with this draft, they at least would lead you to believe they're trying to implement more of a passing attack, getting Rashad Bateman, and now adding Tylan Wallace to the mix as well.
Yeah, and I think you've got a dynamic quarterback in Lamar Jackson who does a lot of things well, specifically with his legs and everything. And I think we saw it here. Tylan Wallace, even though he's not necessarily the biggest receiver, he can win those jump balls because of the ball skills he's got. And you get Lamar Jackson on scramble, and Tylan Wallace finds a way to get open and wins a jump ball. Like I think we can see that, and we may be able to see that early, Tylan Wallace getting on the field in that way, just because of his ball skills are so good. And when you've got a quarterback who can scramble out of the pocket, I think it's important to have a receiver who can have good ball skills. And I think, depending on how they connect, I think, Tylen could find a nice fit in Baltimore.
Well, and if they happen to stay in the way that they've been the last few years in terms of, look, we're going to run, only pass when we desperately need to, and sometimes that doesn't work out, especially late in the playoffs, I would have to think that becomes a disappointment because, as we mentioned before you came on, this is a guy in Tylan Wallace that, first of all, was used to being the number one guy. A lot of the time, he didn't have a ton of challenges in front of him. I thought there was just incredible amounts of time that he spent just clowning different guys on the defensive side, and that's obviously probably not going to be the case right away at the NFL level. So is it fair to say that he's balancing either, like you said, a really good potential start to a career here, or one where he may have wishes he was on a different team?
I think in that situation, I don't think he's going to come in his rookie year and have necessarily like a huge impact.
Right.
But coaches see what they see in practice, and so if you see in practice that he's able to do the things that he was able to do in college at this next level, then you're going to find a way to put that on the field on game day. And so I think for Tylen, because the offense is ran how it is, he has to really show out in the training camps and practice and everything. And that may not happen for him until year 2 or 3. But if he can show that, this is a guy we need to use because of his practice, then I think they'll find a way to do that.
Talking to Frank Bonner here on the Afternoon Sports Drive, and then Rodgers goes to the Giants, and he's going to have to put in a lot of work to get some playing time, but I think probably we should expect to eventually see him out there, and especially with that Giants secondary, how they can be at times, he may find himself out there sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and the thing with cornerbacks, young cornerbacks, they're going to get burned.
Sure.
That's just the nature of it, and so. I don't care if we're talking about, Rodgers Williams or whoever, cornerbacks in the NFL, they're going to have a rough first year, maybe even first, year or two. And so, if he gets out there, you're going to expect him to, get burned some or whatever. But I think for cornerbacks, I always like to look at what did year 2 look like compared to what year 1 was. And so I'm curious to see what his second year is going to be after he gets through his rookie year, because I think that's where cornerbacks really make that jump and, kind of can propel their career to what they're going to be.
I think I asked you this question last week, but it's got some different meaning to it now since we know where these guys have landed. But with those 4 guys that I talked about that were drafted in Rodgers and Tylen, Tevin, and Chuba, which one do you think will have the most productive career before it's all said and done, given their respective positions?
I think Tevin. I think Tevin is going to be a really solid offensive lineman, and I think, Chicago obviously moving up to get him is excited about having him, and so I think it's in their best interest. And same with Justin Fields, right? Like, it's in their best interest to get this right, and so you need your draft picks to hit, and so I think they're going to make sure that Jenkins and Justin Fields are in the best situation to make it work. And so I think because of that, I can see Tevin having the best start to his career, which will probably make him, the best pro, I'd say.
Yeah, that's where I went as well, and Zach did too. I was leaning Tylen's way before the draft, not as much anymore, but again, I can be proven wrong with that. I hope I am. But so then you had 4 guys that landed on teams that weren't drafted afterwards, with Dylan Stoner, with Cam, Murray, with Amon, and then of course you get Calvin Bundage out there too. I thought my personal favorite mashup is still Dylan Stoner with the Raiders, because I still think he is a John Gruden type of guy. It just makes a lot of sense to me over there with what they try to do with their receivers, and then Cam was probably next with Arizona. Same fit over there to me with what they're doing on the defensive side. But what'd you like about where some of those guys landed?
Yeah, well, for one, I was happy to see Calvin Bundage get a shot because of his size. I wasn't sure if he was going to get signed and he was the first one that I saw the news that he got signed. And so I'm happy to see Calvin Abundance get his shot after what he came back from with the back injury and all that. But I'm with you in a similar situation of how, like, Mac Jones, the perfect team for him was the Patriots, and he landed there. I think Dylan landed, in terms of culture, I think landed in one of the perfect situations for him. And so I'm curious to see how far Dylan can go, because one thing you're going to know is he's a guy who's going to work and he's going to do everything right, and I think that will give him a shot. And so I was excited to see him go to the Raiders.
Yeah, he's just he's Hunter Renfrow 2.0. I feel like that's going to be the case. And we saw, if you watched Hard Knocks with the Raiders, you saw John Gruden really fall in love with Hunter Renfrow coming into that program, and he did a lot of the things that Dylan Stoner does and is probably going to be expected to do if he wants to get a chance out there, and that's to work your tail off, even after everyone's done working, which is something Renfrow did, and it's something I would think that Dylan Stoner would probably take from him too to kind of advance himself forward. But I can just picture it now. We're going to see some video footage or audio footage at some point. Gruden's like, man, that Dylan Stoner guy, like he's out there putting in that work, and he's really, I just love seeing what he's done. We got to give him a chance out there.
Do we know who the Hard Knocks team is? Like,
I don't
think so.
How beautiful would it be if it was the Raiders again?
Yeah.
Because you would see him talk about Dylan Stoner.
Yeah, it just makes too much sense for me.
Now, did you guys think that Amon had a shot to get drafted in the late round?
I did before the draft. And I'm not even talking about like fifth round. Like, to me, Amon was always a fringe guy, but I thought with his production and with his size, he could go late. But when Tylen dropped, first of all, when Tevin dropped to the second round, and then you go through the rest of the second and the third round without Tylen going, like, to me, that was like, okay, well, that's not happening. I think the four fringe guys that maybe could have been drafted that were undrafted free agents, they were going to be undrafted free agents as soon as Tylen slipped out of the third.
Yeah, I was with that on too with Amon. Like, I think I was probably leaning towards no, if anything, but that he would immediately get signed, which, as you know, he was.
Yeah, it's and when you drop out of the draft, in some cases, you end up in a team that's more fit for your skill set sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good point. It's example of what we just talked about with Dylan Stoner, where you end up at an opportunity that actually much better, fits your skill set. So, and that's something that I think Dylan's going to prosper with, potentially Cam too. All right, last thing here, Frank, before I let you go, because on draft day, obviously we were all focused on who was going to be picked where and all this. But then Aaron Rodgers decides to kind of drop a nuke on everything with the news that he's not coming back to Green Bay potentially. So the question is pretty straightforward: will he be a Green Bay Packer next season?
No, because I think it's hard to sell that. Like, and I know that the organization is like, they don't want to trade him. He's going to still be here. But he's your quarterback. It's not like he's a running back, or like, you can't have your quarterback leading a team in battle every week when everybody in the front office, the coaching staff, and all his teammates know he doesn't want to be there. And so I think you've got to you got to let him go, because it's going to ruin your team, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that argument. I think it's a good one. There's a lot of negativity, a lot of questions surrounding that organization right now, no doubt. Frank, thanks as always for joining us, man. You can follow him on Twitter at Frank_Bonner too. Good stuff, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, I'll see y'all next week.
All right, that's Frank Bonner from the Tulsa World again on Twitter at Frank_Bonner too. Good stuff there.
Are you as disappointed as I am that they don't have Bigfoot up in Indiana?
No, I'm telling you right now, if he did exist, he would probably be roaming the woods of Indiana.
He's not real.
That's why I said if.
No, he's not real. That's why there's no Bigfoot in Indiana. There's no Bigfoot in Oklahoma either.
I'm
Facts.
leaving it at if. Okay.
Facts. The Ozark Mountains, there ain't no Bigfoot there either.
Now there's something up there in the Ozark Mountains.
meth
though.
heads.
Yeah, well that's true, but there's something I don't know. There's something going on. I just love how Frank had to ask his girlfriend. He's like, hey, by the way,
There, Bigfoot. Oh, it's funny because I said Bigfoot. And he was like, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Oh, we got Sasquatch
but
in Indiana.
he took the randomness of the question in stride like a pro.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, let me ask real quick.
Sure,
Good stuff.
Let me check a pro here. Give me a
We
second.
come back on the afternoon sports drive. We ended asking him about Aaron Rodgers. Well, 3 things happened yesterday regarding the Aaron Rodgers story. We'll find out what those are next. Coming up, Triple Play Sports Radio.
Showed you true colors, I don't like what I see. Story keeps changing, I know what that means. Know what that means, I know what that means. How'd you go from being that somebody I believed into being someone doubting me behind the scenes? Can't forgive or sorry that I ain't never received. I mean, least you could've done was gave me an apology. But you're so prideful, yeah, prideful. Taking what you needed, blame it on me, man, that's so prideful, hey, prideful. Calling me conceited, oh, that's how you see it, well, that's so.
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. At the end of this first hour, Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster rounding out first hour on May the 4th. So 3 things yesterday that went down in the Aaron Rodgers drama. Zach, you ready for this?
Oh, I'm so ready.
3 things. Number 1 was the tweet. Did we mention that with I don't remember if we did yesterday or not. Devontae Adams.
Oh, yeah.
We did,
Because you were blocked.
I was
Yeah,
blocked.
I had
yeah.
to look it up.
He puts out a cryptic tweet that basically says you don't know what you have till it's gone, right? Basically that classic saying. And Aaron Rodgers liked it. Okay, so there's step number 1 that went down. Of course he did. Terry Bradshaw.
I was going to bring that up.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yesterday went on and called him dumber than a box of rocks was his quote.
And he goes, the 3-time MVP in the league, and he's worried about this guy they drafted last year. And then if they fire the general manager, he'll be coming back. Are you kidding me? Really, Aaron? That's where this is? And then he goes on to say, him being that upset shows me just how weak he is.
Yeah, he went off on him.
Probably he should just retire and go do Jeopardy.
Man, he
just kept going.
He just tore into him, and I applaud Terry Bradshaw for speaking his mind. He got it done there. So you had that. You had the Devontae Adams tweet, which, yes, he has me blocked on Twitter still, so I have no way of knowing. The only reason I saw that is because one of my followers had quoted it, and it said that classic, this was tweeted by Devontae Adams, basically, but I can't click on it. So I had to get it from Zach's phone. So we got that one. And then the third thing that happened, Ian Rappaport, who reports for NFL Network, said that this was a, quote, death knell of Rodgers' relationship with Green Bay management came when they cut receiver Jake Kumaro in September.
Who?
Jake Kumaro.
I don't know who that is.
Nobody knows who Jake Kumaro is. He's the guy that bounced around. I think he went to Buffalo at one point, and he was gone pretty quick after that as well. So those were the 3 things that went down with the Aaron Rodgers, whatever you want to call it, drama, temper tantrum, whatever it is. But what I think is interesting is because it does always come back to the Jordan Love stuff. And nobody, including him, thinks that Jordan Love is an actual threat to him, right? Nobody thinks that. It's not about that. It's still about him holding a grudge over a year later. And Aaron Rodgers is the type of guy that will hold a grudge for a long time.
Well, yeah, he hasn't speaking to his family in like
That's what I'm saying.
8 years.
We have perfect evidence that says that. You think that you go and you draft a quarterback and you don't tell him that he's going to be like a year later, you know what, it's fine. No,
I haven't talked to my mom in a decade. Come at me, please.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this will just go away.
What did they think? And that's part of it. When you ask that question, it's like it's not that it was like what did they think? It's they knew what they were doing. Right. You know, we go back to that too. So that's why you do get the argument that Levi was talking about it with us yesterday too, that the Packers could go ahead and basically call some sort of a bluff here. If this is going to continue, then if you're the Packers, you could say, all right, fine, retire. Go host Jeopardy. Okay. We have a backup ready to go. We might not win. We might not be successful immediately. We certainly won't be in an NFC championship game like we were last year with you. And our quarterback's not going to have an MVP season like you did. But fine, get out of here. they at least could say that and see what he responded to, because I'm not sure what he would do. Part of me wants to be like that he would actually say, all right, I told you what I'm going to do. I'm done. Retire. I'm out of here. Jeopardy's good. I like Jeopardy. I'm good at hosting Jeopardy. At least most people would say that. He probably thinks he is too. Going to go out there and make that my career. I'm going to be the next Alex Trebek and end it that way. Never come back. Or he'll be like, okay, they actually did come back on me here. Let me now I got to put a different leak out there that says we're back in contract talks and I'm going to return and all this stuff, and maybe I'm actually going to make amends and we're going to be just fine going into next year. I'm not sure. I really can't peg which one he would choose because he is so back and forth.
Well, and I still think he has most of the power in this situation, because he either gets what he wants, Green Bay fixes the relationship, does what needs to be done, and Aaron comes back. It's still a good team. They have a legitimate chance of making a Super Bowl next year. Or he retires. Well, it's not like Green Bay is going to make you sign a no-compete contract. It's not going to happen. So you just retire, and then all of a sudden you're free. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go host Jeopardy. Or, oh, by the way, I felt like I still had some left in the tank. And so now I'm going to some other team, and you get nothing, Green Bay. You lose a quarterback. You don't get any trade pieces. You don't get anything else for me, and I'm going to go play for the Broncos, or I'm going to go play for this team because they desperately need a quarterback. So I win.
That's what I'm saying with the Green Bay, is because you look back and what they did with Jordan Love and all that stuff, what they did this year, it's all on purpose. It's all calculated. So with that being the case, then that's why some people probably shouldn't be surprised if they were to be like, all right, see ya. This kind of folds into our plan the whole time, even though we put the PR team out there and make sure they relay to everybody that we love Aaron Rodgers, we're doing everything we can to re-sign him. Do you think that it was just accidentally leaked out there that the owner, that the head coach, that everybody had flown out to personally see him? No, that's a part of a calculated move right there. It sounds good. Right? People hear that and are like, oh, wow. These guys are basically groveling to keep Aaron Rodgers over here in Green Bay, and that's amazing that they really care that much. That was calculated public relations 101, and it was very well put out there. So, while I think that the organization has had their issues with this particular situation, and I don't believe they've necessarily treated Aaron Rodgers completely right based off what production he has done for them. There has been a couple of moves here and there that they've done the right thing, but part of me is still saying with Aaron Rodgers, look, I want to know exactly what he wants. And that's something we may never know. Again, we didn't really get it all immediately with the Deshaun Watson stuff. Russell Wilson stuff was also kind of iffy. We heard him say a couple things on the Dan Patrick show that maybe we could draw our own conclusions and connect the dots. But this, with Aaron Rodgers, it's like, okay, you put all this out there, but what do you want? It's like that classic that scene in Breaking Bad. You watch Breaking Bad all the way
Loved
through?
it.
Yeah. Remember Tuco? When he looks at his old man grandpa or his uncle, and he keeps ringing the bell. He goes, "What do you want?" Like, I need to get that soundbite because that's what I'm saying with Aaron Rodgers this whole time.
Absolutely,
I am the Tuco to Aaron Rodgers, and I'm like, dude, tell me what you want right now and get this out there so we don't just think that you're just throwing a giant temper tantrum, still upset about what happened a year ago, which I get.
absolutely.
That sucks. But everything that you've given to Green Bay, you don't want to see another quarterback come in. You want a receiver. I completely understand that. But saying you don't run, or there's rumors that you've said you don't want to return, you've told players that and everything, well, confirm that. Is that true? What do you want to do? And I think Aaron Rodgers is just really sitting back enjoying all of this. We saw him at the Kentucky Derby over the weekend looking completely unbothered. He just looked like
a Fed.
Yeah, he really did. That look was something else. He's out there with his new fiance, right? They're just chilling, having a good old time like nothing's going on. That leads me to believe that he's, first of all, got an end game in mind.
Absolutely.
Second, he's just kind of enjoying the mess that he's been a big part of at this point. When we come back here on the Afternoon Sports Drive in hour number 2, we'll get into some buy or sell and take a look later on at one team that really killed it in the NFL draft. Coming up, this is the Afternoon Sports Drive.
And I don't know how we make it out when we make out on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. Both you and me know we gotta let it go. Laying on the ground, wondering why it's so cold. How we make it out when we make
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive. It's hour number 2. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster on this Tuesday. And to kick off this second hour, we're going to get into some buy or sell.
Are you buying?
I'd buy that for $1.
Or are you selling?
You pick up the phone and you sell.
This is Buy or Sell on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Make money, make money.
Buy or sell, Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio, Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster. Zach, what you got for me?
So I think it's fairly safe to say that Cowboy baseball's in a bit of a skid.
A little bit.
Now they salvaged the 12th inning win in Norman to they still lose the series, but they salvaged a game 3 to avoid getting swept by OU. But a bit of a skid. I think a lot of people thought OU was just the start of the easy portion of the season for Oklahoma State. So buy or sell, they go above 500 in the remaining games of the regular season.
Yeah, I'm with you on being in the camp where I thought the big time win streak and or just a really successful into the season begins with Oklahoma.
Take easy 2 out of 3 against OU.
And the bats went cold, against inferior pitching.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care how you want to word it. I know Josh Holliday worded it different. I disagree. Because Oklahoma pitching wasn't good up to this point, and this is too good of a lineup to go in and swing the bat like that, plain and simple. They went cold. And that happens at times, but this lineup is and we're pretty deep into the season. So it shouldn't be happening now. This is a lineup that should be really putting up numbers against anybody, and they're going to continue to do that. I think coming up here, you get Kansas 3 games. I know I've said this a couple times before, and it hasn't necessarily worked out, but I want 2 out of 3 at Kansas. I think that's a series that you can sweep. I know they're dealing with pitching injuries right now, too. It doesn't help, but Kansas, not that good of a team, so you should be able to get it done. You do face Oklahoma one more time, so maybe you get some revenge there on May 11th on that nationally televised game. You have 3 games with Baylor and then 3 games with New Orleans. So that altogether is 10 games total left. Can they go above 500? Yeah, I'll buy that. I like it at about let's call it a 7-3 clip to end the regular season.
Where are those losses?
I'm going to give 1 at Kansas, 1 at Baylor.
So you think OU or you think New Orleans?
It's in Tulsa in that game. I think they beat Oklahoma there in that meeting and find a way to lose 1 against New Orleans, which I think could be tough to do, but I don't put anything past anybody at this point. So give me 7-3 to finish out the season.
Yeah, I could see 7-3. I think it's very easy to go above 500. Like, Baylor is going to be the toughest games that you play. Baylor's better than Kansas this year. They're better than OU. They're better than New Orleans. So if you lose, if you are going to drop a series, it'd probably be against Baylor. I could see Baylor taking 2. I don't think you get beat by OU again. I could see you sweeping Kansas because Kansas, it's like Kansas football. Maybe not as bad, but not great. They're last in the Big 12 for a reason. So I could see a sweep against Kansas. Honestly, I could see a sweep against New Orleans. That's why you schedule them.
I could too.
But I feel a 2 out of 3.
As we know, sweeping is really difficult.
I could feel a 2 out of 3. So I could see 7-3. Maybe drop 2 against Baylor. You drop 1 against New Orleans because I think you sweep Kansas, and I don't think you. First of all, playing in Tulsa is like Stillwater West or Stillwater East. It's a very Oklahoma State centric place. So I don't see you getting beat by OU again. So I'll take 7-3. I'll take 2 against Baylor, 1 against New Orleans.
Yeah, I really hope. I mean, they need that to happen. To get into they're going to be in a regional, but you want to go in there on a high note, man. This doesn't need to be a team, and then hopefully some of the injuries are better by then, at least improved by then, because you're going to need a full squad no matter where you land in a regional. So I'm going to stick with, as we talked about a couple weeks ago when we got win totals handed out at the NFL level in Vegas, and I like to look back at those numbers now that we've got the new draft class in for these teams. So the first one I'm starting with is the Bears. You grab Justin Fields, you move up, big move, you get your quarterback you want. You end up getting Tevin Jenkins, you probably get the offensive lineman you want as well. They're sitting at 7.5 total wins.
Is that what Vegas has them at?
Buy or sell, over under 7.5 this season for the Chicago Bears. Last year, by the way, they went 8-8 and made the playoffs.
So they've got a better quarterback. A decent backup in Andy Dalton. I'm not
serviceable, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna. He's not a terrible quarterback. He's not a starting quarterback that's gonna go out and win you a ton of games. But in terms of experience, in terms of talent, he's a serviceable backup. 7.5. I think a lot would have to go right for them to win more than 8 games like they did last year. I think they'll be a better team, but I'll probably take the over, but I would probably take 8. I don't know if I'm confident enough to give them double digits. Maybe 9, 8 to 9, but I feel like it'd be a stretch for me to say double digits because it's still Matt Nagy. I mean, it's not like you got it Justin Fields, you got the offensive lineman you wanted. Oh, by the way, we have someone that knows what the hell they're doing at coach. That's not the case. So I think they're good enough to get 8 to 9 wins, but double digits,
okay,
I'd sell.
So you'll take the over.
Because they got better.
Yeah,
they're not. I don't think it's going to be less than 8.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were terrible last year, and they got better in the draft.
And a lot of times we look at rookie quarterbacks coming in, and we have to taper our levels of expectations for their success, and that's understandable. But it's hard to do so in a Chicago system. Mm-hmm. Where they've lacked that success at that position for quite a while. And based on what Justin Fields has done at the college level, what I think a lot of people expect him to do in the NFL, he provides you with more upside than you would get from Andy Dalton, from Mitch Trubisky, and from Nick Foles at this point. You know, he's the guy, I feel like, that has the chance to up that total and give you the best chance for that. You got some playmakers around him, not as many as I would like for a new quarterback, but you do have some. I think Allen Robinson is a top 10 wide receiver in the league right now. He's going to help you out a ton. Mooney's not bad at all as a second guy. And then you add, David Montgomery's a solid back who can handle a ton of carries. And then that's taking a load off of what Justin Fields is going to have to do. You mix in Tevin Jenkins on the offensive line. You know, they've got the pieces that are going to be there to get them at least put the right foot forward to where they want to go. So with that being said, it's 7.5. I think I'd take the over 2, sitting probably right at 8. I'm not sure that it's a huge improvement overall in terms of win total this year because, like you said, it is still the Bears. You know, as much as I love what they did in the draft, and I think that they are, like I said, on the right path to success down the road, they're still the Bears. Now, if Aaron Rodgers happens to head out of that division, then you could maybe tack on another win there. We could go 9, right? Because I think they could absolutely beat an Aaron Rodgers-less Packers team over there, unless Jordan Love just kind of changes the narrative, surprises everybody, and balls out, which I would be shocked if that did happen. So I'm going to buy over 7.5, but just barely. You know, give me that 8. And I think we see it kind of steadily improve from there because Justin Fields, I really do believe, is going to improve with time. We could be talking about a really successful quarterback the next few years. Whoever else they continue to add in the draft, you know they'll end up making moves now for wide receivers in the future too if they really do stick with Justin Fields as their guy. Like, okay, we need another couple more weapons over here for him, which is something they need to do to pair up with Allen Robinson. So
give you a solid look into the future.
Yeah, man, yeah, for sure. And I just really, I think that it's a really good start for the Chicago Bears. But this is somewhere that they're going to have to really hope they can expand on the playmaking abilities of Justin Fields and line him up for success. So give me 8, but it's going to get better. It's going to
absolutely. So I'm sticking the NFL. I'm going Tylan Wallace. Over or under 300 receiving yards in his rookie season.
Ooh. Over, under.
Yeah, because 300 I think is a decent
300.
Decent starting point.
Man, I'm really I think that when Tylan does get his chance, it's going to end up being, at least I'm hopeful, one of those where it's like, hey, we gave him a couple balls and look what he did. Like, he made big-time plays with them, or he came down with a one-on-one ball or something like that. He held on to a ball middle of the field, got us a big first down, and we were able to score on that drive because of advancing that. So something like that is what I'm hopeful for, and that kind of gets him in the door a little bit. Now, again, I can also see this being a Ravens team where there are plenty of opportunities for him to slide in because, as I said, I don't know about Sammy Watkins staying healthy. His track record over the last few years will tell you that that's probably a stretch to expect him to, A, stay healthy, and B, be a huge part of the game plan going forward. I really do think they if the Ravens are smart, man, they got to be like, look, we got to push Hollywood Brown back. You know, he can't be hogging a bunch of targets anymore when we do decide to throw because he's just not the guy. He hasn't shown that he can get it done at this level. I think Rashad Bateman immediately slides in as wide receiver 1 and gives you that ability. But with those options I said there, I really truly believe as well that Tylen, when he gets his chance, could play better than Hollywood Brown has at the NFL level. Give him a chance to slide in there and maybe become that number 3 guy down the road, and it might be halfway through the season. If the Ravens start off, Zach, and they're struggling, then it needs to be something where they're like, let's give somebody else a chance. So 300 yards. I think I'll take the over because we know what he can do with the football in his hands in terms of yards after the catch. We know what he can do with rack. So I do believe he has that ability to pick up that amount. The question is, again, how quickly will he be implemented in? Because if it's game 12, 13, 14 of the season where they finally give him a real shot, then it's going to be obviously tough to get that done. But if you, from game 1, he's getting a couple targets out there or getting the opportunity, even halfway through the season, he could turn that into it and really become a solid receiver before it's all said and done.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'll take the over. Now, I'm not going like 500-600 yards, but I think a rookie season, because I talked about it after he got drafted, I could very easily see Tylan Wallace turning some heads in OTAs and turning heads in training camp because he is incredibly athletic. He's incredibly physical, so I don't think he's going to move into that number 2 role or number 1 role super early. But I think he is going to go out there and he is going to prove to this coaching staff that he has what it takes. And so I'll take the over 350. 4 maybe the high side, but I think he'll get a chance to prove himself early.
Well, you hit on it there too, the physicality thing. Yeah. I think it's something he needs to show that he will bring early, and that's in OTAs, that's in training camp. I get out there, I don't care who's across from me, I'm going to be real physical with him. I'm going to bump him, I'm going to make some contact, I'm going to get open. That's the type of guy Tylen has to be. He cannot be reserved at all. No. I'm not saying he is, but he can't afford to be at all one time. At this level because of the position he's in. He's fighting for a chance to get out there. It's not just you're automatically slotted in like some of these guys are. For instance, like we saw last year with Justin Jefferson, Ruggs, Judy, CeeDee Lamb, those guys, you're going to have to fight. And so, and I think he has that. He's ready for it. I think he's going to be up to the challenge. I'm sticking with totals because the other interesting team, obviously, and I think one of the most interesting teams coming into this year is the Jacksonville Jaguars because you get Trevor Lawrence and it helps that you get a brand new coach, right, to kind of change everything going on there. A team that won 1 game last year. And it was hilarious because you go back to, I'm sure you've seen it by now, but after that first game, Jacksonville's social media account tweeted out 1-0.
Yeah.
And they
that was it.
And it never went back again to another win. It was unbelievable. They were in some games at times. They looked like they played up to the competition at times, but just couldn't quite get it done. The biggest issue still, they allowed the most points, the most yards. I mean, their defense just gets torched every single time they play. They added some pieces here, but it's probably still going to take some time before they're right there. You get Trevor Lawrence, new QB. You added a running back for whatever reason, I guess. The camaraderie's good between him and Lawrence being in college with ETN. So they're sitting at 6 total wins coming into the season. That's obviously an improvement from 1. Over under that number here in 2021.
I'll actually take that. I'll take it right at 6.
Okay.
Because I obviously what they brought in is going to be an improvement from what they had last year. But they're not gonna go out and shock the world, and win 9, 10, 11, 12 games. I think you're gonna be able to beat some teams that you should beat. And I think it'll be a marked improvement. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a decent rookie season. I think he'll have a chance to win Rookie of the Year, but I don't think it's going to be like mind-blowing and they're making a run for the playoffs and a wild card spot or whatever. I'm pushing 6.
I'm gonna, you know what I'm gonna take the over because Tim Tebow's coming in. Tim Tebow's coming in. If that were the case, no, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Although that story is kind of gaining a little bit of traction that he might actually become a part of that organization. I think I'm going to take the under at 6. I like it about 5. Wouldn't be totally shocked if they only managed 4 wins. But there is a ton of interest early on, obviously, because you want to see what the number 1 overall draft pick by a mile, right? Everyone knew he was going number 1. You want to see what he does in his rookie year. Does it translate over how good he was in college to the next level with a really, let's be honest, below average squad, especially defensively? Again, I know they made additions, but this team is bad defensively. They give up a ton of points. Can Urban Meyer shift the culture back into a winning mindset, which is something they desperately need? Doug Marrone did very little of that when he was there. You bring in some new faces at skill positions. You still have James Robinson, who was a fun story last year, one of the leading rushers as an undrafted free agent. You mix him in with ETN. DJ Shark is up and coming. Laviska Shenault is certainly up and coming. You've got some playmakers. Now you add Trevor Lawrence to the mix. And that means that you're going to find yourself in some wins. You're going to run over some teams every now and again and come out with a W. But I still think most of the time it's going to be back to the L's, at least this year. This is still certainly a rebuild situation for Jacksonville. Not like an immediate playoff team or anything like that, but they are on the right track. I mean, hell, you go from 1 win to 4, 5, 6. You're taking that as a step forward all day long. We come back here on the afternoon sports drive. We'll take a look at one team that I think has gone a little bit under the radar in terms of how well they drafted. Find out who that is next. Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Whoa.
Staring as I go, I gave until my soul hurt, never told them so. They're watching as I fall, somewhere down below. Maybe I'm just falling to get somewhere they want, get somewhere they want.
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster looking at one team, Zach, that I thought really did a great job in the NFL draft.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, they did.
You know, wow, people hear that like, oh, of course, shocker, that's where he's going. No, but they really did. I mean,
was wondering how long it would take you to get back to kissing some Chief booty.
Yeah, and it's not even kissing the butt because, well, I guess if I am, it's because they deserve it at this point.
Yeah.
It's like, you go through with a round or a draft where you didn't have a first-round pick.
They got it figured out.
They really do. I agree. I think they have, selecting and getting their picks nailed down pretty early, knowing who they want to go after. You start with the first pick you get is number 58 in the second round. And you grab Nick Bolton out of Mizzou. And do you remember the play he made? I forget what team it was now, but I remember watching the replay of it. I was actually watching it live. He made a hit on this receiver in the middle of the field, completely clean. They replayed it over and over. It was vicious and violent, but it was a completely clean hit. And yet they called it targeting and kicked him out of the game. You know how that rule is used a lot. And it brought up the whole argument back in college football, like
it was Arkansas.
Arkansas, yeah, okay. And it was basically, the whole argument of, well, targeting when it's right, yeah, it's right. It makes sense. You want to make sure they feel the sting of that and everything. But when it's not, and you throw a guy out of a game for making a football play, that's when you get people like me riled up on it. You're watching the hit. I mean, it was a hell of a hit. He nailed him. It wasn't targeting them.
No.
That's a good hit.
I could see how they called it because he comes down, takes one hit, and
initially.
But to me, though, it's like that. So he comes down, there's one, and then he takes his left step. So to me, that it's really no longer a defenseless player because he took a
Right.
football step.
And that's part of it too, is like in the fast motion of things in real time. It's like, okay, that may have been a dirty hit.
Because his head does snap down and go back.
Right,
and
but you have the chance to replay it.
Absolutely.
And when they still replay it and they're like, no, that was a dirty hit. No, it wasn't. Like, that was one of the most incorrect calls I've seen. But he's now a Chief. He comes in, and you got Willie Gay last year. You add Nick Bolton to the mix on defense, which is something they still want to bolster up in the middle in their linebacker spot, and they did a good job with that first one. The second one is a name that people will recognize around here, Creed Humphrey from Oklahoma, their center. He gets heading over to Kansas City, which what I think is crazy about the whole Chiefs thing is they said, all right, what's our number one focus in the offseason? We need to overhaul the offensive line. And to say they did that is an understatement. When you look at the new additions on this offensive line, it is truly unbelievable. And they didn't stop there. You know, they went to the draft and they grabbed a couple of guys. And I think that is big time. You get Orlando Brown, Joe Thuney, Kyle Long, Austin Blythe. You draft Creed Humphrey. You get LDT coming back. Lucas Niang on his way back in as well. And then Trey Smith. I mean, you think they wanted to protect Patrick Mahomes? They got everything they needed to do so. I was thrilled with the Creed Humphrey pickup. They went and got a defensive end over there from Florida State in Joshua Kendo. He's coming on in. Then you actually got a tight end. Noah Gray from Duke popped in. And people are like, hey, you know, you get a guy that's going to come in and learn from arguably the best in the game right now, Travis Kelce, absolutely. You're good with that. And then what I think could end up being someone, Zach, that we're talking about on this Chiefs offense in a year or two, maybe even this upcoming season, is Cornell Powell. Mm-hmm. He comes in out of Clemson, and this dude is huge. He's 6 foot, 204 pounds. If you look at him, he's like the spitting image body type of an A.J. Brown. He's got a little bit of DK Metcalf look to him as well. And that's what the Chiefs needed in terms of receivers. They had a really speedy guy with Tyreek Hill, obviously. You can add in McCole Hardman, who's basically the same thing in terms of play style. But you need a big body guy to go out there and make plays for you. You get Cornell Powell. And then they draft Trey Smith, like I talked about, too. So I think they did a really fantastic job, starting with the second round, only getting their first pick going on there in the mid-50s, late 50s, and then coming away with that draft class. You got to feel... I mean, you nailed. You got wide receiver, which you needed. You got offensive line twice, which you needed, and then you got defense. And then they did a good job with the selections, and you got tied in. I mean, there you go. So I thought that, you know, very rarely do we see teams that don't get a first-round pick actually come away with a really good grade in terms of their draft class. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it there. Brett Veach and these guys, they just know what they're doing. You know, plain and simple. They don't come in guessing. The last time they maybe even had a slight guess was before they 100% decided on Mahomes. But Brett Veach said, we got to go with that guy. We got to go with Mahomes. They come in with that idea in the draft. All right, we're going to move up to get him. But Chicago passed on him. The green light was lit up on the Chiefs to move up, and they got it done. The rest is history. But I think it's pretty rare to see a team come away with such a solid draft class, potential-wise, right, starting in the second round. And it's something that we have to, you know, with Kansas City, it's easy. You know, you look back and you say, well, you look at what they did last year, and obviously they needed help here, but to me, Zach, and I don't know if you agree with this, but this is almost to the point where it's like if some of these picks, you know, end up hitting as well as the offensive line additions, it's back to on this episode of why the NFL should again be ready to fear the Kansas City Chiefs. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to think that they would hit on at least 2, 3. I think it's safely to say that.
Well, with that system too.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that they'll hit on a few of the picks, and that's the thing I think is so important to think about. Is one of the biggest pickups in this draft came before the draft with Orlando Brown.
That too, sure.
Like that's what they needed. Like you give up. If you're looking at it, what lineman would they have been able to bring in with that 31st pick? Like they could have brought in someone good, but no one with the experience and the pedigree that Orlando Brown has. And then you go out and you add some pretty solid pieces. They weren't hurting to begin with. Like, they needed to repair the offensive line, but it wasn't like, okay, we got to go, like, this is a glaring hole. We got a big issue here. We got a big issue there. Like, they already have the best quarterback. They've got a couple of the better position players in the league. They've added some really solid picks to the line. Oh, by the way, we're going to bring in a B+, A- offense or a draft class where even if 2 or 3 pieces pan out, we're back to where we were pre-offensive line injury last year.
Yeah, they looked at it and they said offensive line, big gap. Like that's number one, and they pretty much had that done, like you said, before the draft even started.
Yeah.
You added Creed Humphrey, and it was like, we got our center. You know, you looked at the center position. You said, who do you need? Well, we need a guy that's going to be really consistent to shore up basically our last piece there, and they throw him in the mix. So I think he's going to be. He just screams, Kansas City Chief type player. I think he's going to be there for a long time and enjoy blocking for Patrick Mahomes. You look at wide receiver 1, set. You look at wide receiver 2, and you're like, we could probably use some help in that area to make sure we have a really solid second guy. We like DeMarcus Robinson. We like Mecole Hardman. We re-signed and we picked up Byron Pringle, his deal, so he's going to be in the mix. But let's get a guy like Cornell Powell and see what he does. We're going to give him a shot out there. You have and it's easy to kind of fade away on wide receiver 2 in this offense because Travis Kelce is basically wide receiver 2. But you throw him in the mix, you grab a backup tight end. I mean, I just think that there is a lot of positives coming out of this, and for a team that, in a way, Zach, too, could probably take a little bit of the pressure off because we talked about with the offensive lineman, you were set, and Creed Humphrey, when he fell, it was somewhat of at a time where the draft is full of pressure for a lot of teams to make sure they hit, especially when you're drafting high in the first round. This just happened to be a time for a team like Kansas City where they could kind of lay back, see who was available, easily make their picks, not really have to worry about any of them, who was going to be there, who was not, because you didn't even get to pick till 58. They got it done, and I think it's going to be a big plus for what comes next season because you add in, on top of all of these picks in the offensive line, just everything that went down in terms of last year. I think that the conversation is being shifted more towards now. It's like, hey, Tampa Bay got it done.
Yeah.
Right? They brought everybody back, and they got it done against the team that everybody was like, they're not going to – the Chiefs can't lose. They go back to the Super Bowl, they're not going to lose. Well, not only did the Bucs get it done, but they embarrassed Kansas City in the way they got it done. So I think that there is a lot to play into it there where you're like, we need some revenge. Some of these guys want to come back full bore, and you add these pieces. Brett Veach did a fantastic job. I'm excited to see what comes of some of these guys with Kansas City. But that was and I don't know about am I wrong too, Zach, for thinking like I didn't see a lot of talk about the Chiefs in the draft because again they didn't start till the second round late. There wasn't like this, like we saw obviously with Mahomes and all that stuff. Like, man, that was a good draft class. Or last year, when they get Clyde Edwards-Helaire and they get Willie Snead and all those guys, or Jarius Snead and Willie Gay and all those guys. It's like, man, that was a heck of a draft class. You didn't really hear much this year.
Well, and I think it's because they didn't need much.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't like you had to bring in an offensive lineman because you filled those holes before the draft even started. So I think that could play into – I think that could play even more into the Chiefs because you're not going to hear about their draft class. You're not going to talk about some of these guys, and I think Creed Humphrey is going to be a pretty big role on that offensive lineman. We saw how good he was at Oklahoma. And when you're that good going up against some pretty solid defensive linemen week in and week out, and that's something the Big 12 does have. The Big 12 is very talented with defensive tackles. So you don't really have to be like, okay, well, is our third round pick going to pan out because we're desperately, we were in desperate need of a corner, and well, that's not the case anymore. So yeah, I think they had a hell of a draft, and I think this draft class is going to fly under the radar because didn't necessarily matter all that much in the grand scheme of things for this upcoming season.
When we come back on the afternoon sports drive, we'll round out the show and tell you what we learned. It's coming up next. Oh, may the 4th be with you. Wow, just so you know, that wasn't...
of any Star Wars songs that Levi could have put into the system, he puts like the worst.
We let Levi be bump man over here. He came in and he said, I got mystery Star Wars music.
Yeah.
Cantina.
And I said it too. And I was like, it's Cantina Band. And he just kind of gets this like real cheese-eating grin and like slowly backs out of the room. Like, of course it's Cantina Band. Super campy.
I think he knew that it was your least favorite, which nice job, Levi. I'm proud of you. There you go. He comes in and look, he's not even producer today, and he's just throwing in the music. you just never know when he comes in.
So many great music pieces from Return of the Jedi, and it had to be Cantina.
Yeah, but he was right when he's like, there's only a couple that you would really recognize, Cantina and then the main theme.
I guess.
If we played other stuff, people would be like, that's like an epic soundtrack. But like, what is it? Oh yeah, May the 4th. But that one just immediately brings you into the scene. I know what it is. Oh, that's Star Wars. To round out the show, we're going to tell you what we learned.
The day is coming to an end. Time to find out if these two got any smarter. Let's find out what the guys learned today on the afternoon sports drive.
Well, I learned something today.
So I learned that it was reported today that the Saints in the draft had actually wanted to end up trading up to get Mac Jones. They saw him as being their guy. Sean Payton was apparently in love with what he did in college, wanted him to bring it over to New Orleans and give him a chance because, as we know, and this really tells it to me right now pretty clearly that they still don't know what they're going to do at quarterback with no Drew Brees. But they instead had to see him fall to 15 to the New England Patriots. And, look, it does make me believe a little bit more in Mac Jones' ability at the next level if you've got reportedly Kyle Shanahan, right, fighting for a chance to potentially get him at 3, although we know by now is probably Trey Lance all the way through. But still, he showed interest in him. Sean Payton interested in him. And then, of course, Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick interested in him. That tells me right there that there's some real reason to maybe buy into what he's going to do if those types of guys are interested in what he does at the next level. But it does tell me that the Saints are in big-time question mode still with quarterback because Drew Brees leaves a pretty big hole,
Absolutely.
as we know. So now what? Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. That's going to be the real quarterback battle over the offseason. They did get Ian Book from Notre Dame. I saw a little bit of him this past season. There were times he looked pretty good, other times pretty average for Notre Dame. But he comes into the mix. How much so leaves to be questioned. Most likely going to be your third-string guy. But if you go through a couple of games and the Saints can't find the right quarterback, who knows, he could have a chance at some point. I just look, Taysom Hill, you know how I feel about him. We saw him for a number of years now. They signed him to an extension. He got to play some actual quarterback throughout an entire game multiple times this past year, and it was like he got wins, but there was nothing that told me, you throw him into a playoff game and he's going to continue to get you guys forward in the playoffs. You're going to win games. Nothing told me that. He's still pretty limited overall. And Jameis Winston. Like, I want to believe in what he has to offer, but man, unless the decision-making has changed recently in this year off that he's had, he did get to sit behind Drew Brees in his final year, and I'm sure he absorbed a ton of that because, look, I've said it before, I'm not sure how intelligent we can really say Jameis Winston is based off his track record, but maybe he sat there and absorbed some of that from Drew Brees because I think we saw him a little bit later in the season. And he can still throw a pretty ball. I do believe that. And if I had to pick between him and Taysom Hill, I'm probably leaning towards Jameis Winston, which, might sound crazy to some people, but that's kind of where I am. But I think right now, Zach, the Saints are nervous. They really are.
Yeah.
Because you had a Hall of Fame quarterback that it made sense for him to end his career. I get it. He's battling injuries. We saw what all he had to go through last year just to make it through the season, and he gets to end on his terms, and he did so. So now you're like, what? What do we do? Is Sean Payton really going to be in love still with Taysom Hill and think he's going to be the answer? Because I don't. Clearly he's not. They got Ian Book for a reason, and down the stretch, maybe he is kind of your wonder boy. You give him a chance. You throw him in the mix with the receivers you got with Michael Thomas. You throw him with Alvin Kamara. Who knows? Maybe his things all of a sudden start to feel good again. But I think the Saints are nervous, to be honest with you, with a quarterback, because you look at all these teams around them. The Bucs are clearly in the position in the driver's seat right now to keep it going, and they realize that, look, without Drew Brees, man, this is a competitive NFC. There are a lot of teams here that are in front of us now, and we don't know if we're going to even have a chance this year. So that's certainly one of the biggest question marks. The three guys that are most likely going to be there now and have a chance at that quarterback spot. I'm still leaning Jameis Winston's way, but man, I'm telling you, it's probably not a great time to be a Saints fan because you have no clue what's about to show up at quarterback.
Imagine being an LSU fan that roots for the Saints, and they end up drafting Mac Jones, and you have to cheer for one of the the highest performing Alabama quarterbacks.
How great would that be?
Yikes. So I learned today that Giants head coach Joe Judge apparently thinks that Daniel Jones is just a Terminator because he comes out. So we know that hurts his hamstring back late November against Cincinnati, right? Then he misses a game and comes back only to injure his ankle in a hit against Arizona. So this is what Joe Judge had to say about Daniel. It's like, look, Daniel is the last guy that's going to use anything as an excuse. What I would say about the injury last year is it was much more serious than maybe people thought on the outside. I would say probably 90% of the players in the league, not quarterbacks, 90% of the players in the league who would have had that injury, including quarterbacks, would have been on the IR for the remainder of the year. That's just the reality of it.
Don't we hear this all the time?
My quarterback is the most strong guy I've ever seen.
Don't we hear this from coaches all the time, though?
Get out of
With
here.
injuries they suffer, and then however much is reported to the media, it always seems like, man, though, if you guys knew the true scope of it, like, this is one tough son of a gun.
Right.
We hear it all the time. And
He's stronger than 90% of the people in this league. Get out of here.
What's funny about Daniel Jones is when he came in at New York, I think he immediately became public enemy number one because they benched Eli Manning to put him in, right?
And then brought Eli back and then benched him again.
And Eli wasn't doing great by any means. He was clearly at the end of his career when that happened. But I thought they went about it the wrong way. I thought they did it wrong. They bring in Daniel Jones, and he doesn't do a ton. There were times where he showed sparks, and that was good. People were ticked off that they drafted him in the first place. But last year, after he's injured, it's Colt McCoy time.
It's wild that he's still in the league.
I think a lot of people thought that whenever they thought, okay, who's going to come in for Daniel? Oh, Colt McCoy?
He's still playing?
He's still floating around. He's like
got the best job in the league.
He's like Chase Daniel.
My God.
But he actually had to go out there and play some snaps, and it didn't end well.
Coach, I haven't opened the playbook.
Yeah, the coach, I planned on just sitting here this whole time and reminiscing about Texas.
I don't know. Like, can I make up stuff? Like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Coach, I don't even know where I am. I'm just thinking about Texas. I mean, that's Colt McCoy. And so they probably desperately miss Daniel Jones. I do think, though, it's interesting you bring him up, that he is on the hot seat in terms of you better succeed this year, man.
This is it.
We have lined you up with weapons out the wazoo. Receiver, Saquon's coming back. Evan Ingram, when he decides to catch the ball, can be a stud at tight end. We've added some defensive pieces. I think this is a team to keep an eye out for in the NFC East. I know it's a Giants, so they'll probably find a way. Come on now. It's time if you're Daniel Jones. If not, then we got to start looking in different directions if you're the New York Giants, man, because they set him up. It's one of a multitude of teams that have been set up this year for their quarterbacks to finally succeed. Will that happen? We got to wait and find out.
I have a feeling we're going to be seeing Daniel Jones get off the pot here pretty soon.
Man,
Sorry.
I hope so.
Sorry, Giants fans. But he's going to be getting off the pot.
That tough son of a gun, Daniel Jones over there. Wow.
90% of the league, huh? Tougher than 90%?
Okay. That's interesting. This has been the Afternoon Sports Drive. Happy May the 4th to everybody out there. If you're going to go nerd out, enjoy it for Star Wars like Zach is, right? The low-key nerd out session you're going to have. That's fine. Yeah.
We're going to watch a little Bad Batch.
Great.
Maybe watch a little Clone Wars.
Wow.
I don't know.
So,
Yeah.
hey,
Might maybe throw it back, watch some original.
it's going to
Not
get wild.
sure.
It's going to get wild.
Might even read a book. Whoa.
Wow, there you go. That's Zach Lancaster. I'm Patrick Wheeler. We're back tomorrow, 3 o'clock. Tom Dorado will join us, and we'll get right back into it here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Everyone have a fantastic Tuesday evening.